Good afternoon. Good to, it's good to have you all here this afternoon, and we'll see how many people can stay awake after lunch. The blessing of heart-healthy cholesterol. Now you might be thinking, well, wait a minute, I thought my cholesterol was supposed to be as low as possible. In fact, maybe it would be good if it was just all gone. But that isn't necessarily the case. But we want healthy cholesterol, not unhealthy cholesterol. Well, I'll have to explain that a bit. I had a gentleman that came to me. He was one of these people that likes to bait you. You know what I mean by bait you? Ask you a question he hopes that will stump you, make you do some thinking, maybe kind of get you off track. And well, sorry, I got my slide here in foreign cholesterol levels. But he says, why me? I had a heart attack at a cholesterol of what would be 140 American. At 140? And that's pretty low. I mean, a lot of people don't achieve that even with the fancy medications. And so he had me scratching my head. Yeah, why'd you have a heart attack with a cholesterol of 140? And it kind of had me puzzled, and so we talked a lot. He had his dietary ideas and so forth, and he wanted me to give him an answer. Well, I said, okay. Well, we'll get back to him because his story does illustrate a lot of interesting things. So with natural cholesterol control, through good food, pure water, and vigorous exercise, you can enjoy clear thinking, have emotional well-being, have a strong immune system, and balance hormones, and preserve physical and mental energy. So these are all involved in your cholesterol. I used to practice fairly conventionally. Here I am with one of my patients. He was one of the local celebrities, so he wanted his picture with me. But I had replaced both his knees at one surgery, and he was happy with that. But so I used to do things very conventionally and would have treated people with drugs and surgery and so forth. But now I do what we call lifestyle medicine, which means we figure out by what you do why you got sick, and then we help you change it so you get well. That's the plan. And I've been doing this since 2006 full-time. I started working my way out of a job, though, when I was actually in the hospital because I kept treating more and more people with natural remedies and lifestyle changes. So we're going to talk about benefits of healthy cholesterol. We're going to talk about when you get too much cholesterol or too little cholesterol. And we'll talk about the mind-body connection and cholesterol. So that's where we're headed. The benefits of healthy cholesterol. So let's start there. One of the things that people don't realize is that your cholesterol is important for your brain. In fact, your brain is largely cholesterol. And if it's largely cholesterol, well, that means if I don't have any cholesterol, I might not have any brain. And so we need some cholesterol in order for the brain to develop. It's also there for good energy and feeling good. In fact, people who get too low cholesterol get depressed and get suicidal. Think about that for a bit. Then there's your cells. All your cells have walls. Those walls have a special purpose to keep some things in and some things out. And the wall has to be very strong and supple. Without cholesterol, it's not very supple. Cholesterol is kind of like BPA. You know why they put BPA in plastic? To make it softer. Well, that's what the cholesterol does for your cell walls. And so the cells that get the most workout in your body is the red blood cells. They get squished through your capillaries every time they go around circulation. So you need good red blood cells. Now, this one you need to focus on. What does it say? Digestion of fats. That's a big part of cholesterol. And then there's the immune system. If you have plenty of cholesterol, that's good cholesterol, your immune system will be healthy. Hormones. I didn't know what picture to put up there for hormones, so I thought maybe that one would do. But you need cholesterol is the building block of all your hormones. Testosterone, estrogens. Most of the hormones have a backbone of cholesterol. And therefore, since the hormones are important, fertility as well. Now, I have a question here for you. What does perfect cholesterol look like? What would it look like? Well, this is a scanning electron micrograph of some cholesterol. They painted it up to have color, but usually it's black and white. Those purple-pink things are balls of cholesterol. You see, cholesterol, LDL, HDL, VHDL, all those fancy things, they're really balls or circles. What it is you have an outside layer of capsule that carries cholesterol around to the body. And so we'll talk about those as we go along. But what would a good one look like? Well, this one looks good. It's pretty pink. And, well, I'm talking about looking deeper into it. Now I want to tell you about my uncle. I say, don't let this happen to you. My uncle died of heart disease at age 39. Yeah. And why do I have somebody here all dressed up in an operating room? It's because he was an anesthesiologist at the University of Texas, down near Houston. Wow. Dying at 39? I mean, probably didn't graduate from, anesthesiology school till he was in his, late 20s. So he's just in his career, and he's working at the university, so he's teaching other anesthesiologists, and he dies. That's not good. He left behind my aunt and 2 cousins. And, yeah. Okay, question for you. What do you suppose he ate for supper every night? Meat? Well, that would have done it. That could have been the culprit. See, you could give the lecture too. But no, it wasn't meat. He would have been considered a vegetarian. Cheese? That would have done it. Sure. And but no, it wasn't cheese. Dessert? What kind of dessert? Ice cream! You got it. Ice cream. And you're wondering, what's so bad about ice cream? They say, don't feed ice cream to your dog, it'll kill it, eat it yourself. But here's what happens. I used to practice up in Iowa. Some of my patients worked at an ice cream factory. The ice cream factory, they would put in milk and eggs and cream and whip it full of air till it was twice the volume, and then they would freeze it suddenly with liquid nitrogen. One of my things not on what it should be. Let's see. Thank you. All right, let you get back there. I guess I'm getting picked up by this one, so maybe I ought to just... Shows full battery. There we go. All right. Now I'm sounding good. And so the whole time that product sits on the shelf, the oxygen is next to the cholesterol. When oxygen is next to the cholesterol gets oxidized. When cholesterol gets oxidized, it becomes a free radical, becomes poisonous, becomes very dangerous in your body, and causes all kinds of problems as it goes through your blood vessels. In fact, within 24 hours of eating oxidized cholesterol, laboratory animals develop lesions in their blood vessels. Lesions like which would cause plaque and heart attacks in human beings within 1 day of eating ice cream. So I had a friend that was trying to figure out how many trillion, quadrillion molecules of oxidized cholesterol would be in 1 quart of ice cream. And his numbers were getting bigger and bigger as he figured, but very dangerous. And any custard mix where you have milk, eggs, and sugar, and cream, and oxygen, and pancake mixes have been identified as very atherogenic. I was at Walmart the other day. I wanted to make sure this was true because we don't buy pancake mixes, but they had dried eggs in the pancake mix, and so the whole time that package is on the shelf, there's oxygen inside that plastic bag with all those ingredients, and the oxygen inside that plastic bag is oxidizing the cholesterol in the eggs that are dried and mixed in with that mix. And so it's very atherogenic. Cheese, somebody mentioned cheese. Is cheese high in fat? Is cheese fresh? And so you have oxidized cholesterol and oxidized fats. And oxidized fats will do the same thing as oxidized cholesterol. Animal fat. And so these oxidized cholesterols, and it's very hard to get cholesterol from an animal to you without it getting in contact with air. A lot of people take their cholesterol-laden foods and they take them out to the grill on the back porch and they oxidize all the cholesterol in it if it isn't already oxidized. And you end up with high levels of this oxidized cholesterol. Where does it go? What's it do? Well, it doesn't just cause heart disease. It goes to the lungs and it causes asthma and lung inflammation. It goes to the liver and causes liver degeneration, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It goes to the prostate, causing inflammation and cancer. It goes to the joints. You get rheumatoid arthritis. It goes to the skin. And you get skin keratoses and cancer and all kinds of things. Interesting, you get people cleared up on their diet of some of these fats, and those old people spots will start disappearing. I thought skin cancer was from too much sun. You know, if you get melanoma, which is the worst skin cancer, and you hide from the sun, your prognosis is worse than if you go out and get more sun. I mean, it's not good to burn in the sun, but sunshine isn't just a, terrible thing. Colon cancer rises with this oxidized cholesterol, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, breast cancer, we already mentioned prostate. Now, inflammation from oxidized cholesterol increases bone resorption, otherwise known as osteoporosis. That's when your bones get so thin they want to break easily. So beware of that. Now, let's say two people had a cholesterol of 240, which would be a bit too high. But one of them eats lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, and the other one does not. Guess which one's going to have the heart attack? The one that doesn't eat the fresh fruits and vegetables. Now this will give you a clue as we come back to our gentleman who was baiting me with his 140 cholesterol and a heart attack. Because there's going to be a difference here in cholesterol, a difference that isn't reflected in the average hospital laboratory cholesterol panel. Keep that in mind. Because let's suppose I do get my cholesterol levels checked, and it is 240, or whatever it is. Let's say it was 140, like the gentleman who was baiting me. It's kind of like in my vehicle, I've got an oil pressure gauge. Now the oil pressure should be up somewhere around, 70. But if my oil pressure is at 70, does that tell me anything about what the oil looks like? Whether it needs change? Whether it's still nice and clear like honey? Or if it looks like brown soup? Doesn't tell me anything about the quality of the oil, only that there's a pressure of it. Same is true of your cholesterol labs. It says your total cholesterol is 140 or whatever it is. Doesn't tell you about whether it's oxidized or not. And so this is a big issue. Some of the research laboratories have gone to testing oxidized cholesterol, but it's not a common test for the average hospital. Okay, now let's talk about antioxidants. What can I do to clean my cholesterol up if it's oxidized? If my cholesterol is oxidized, then I need antioxidants. And you're looking at some of them there. What's that? Fresh fruit, vegetable department at the supermarket. Yes, and so if you eat your antioxidants, you start cleaning up your cholesterol. Things that have been studied. This isn't an exhaustive list, but this is a group of things I found in my research. Potatoes with the skins. A lot of the nutrition of fruits and vegetables is in the skins. Rice, especially wild rice. Black-eyed peas, carrots, leafy greens, lettuce and red leaf lettuce. Beet greens, garlic, apples, onions, and quercetin, which is a phytochemical in apples and onions. Grapefruit, pistachio nuts, seaweed. You could figure that any fresh fruits and vegetables would be helpful, but these are ones that researchers went chasing after for some reason. So, again, there's a difference between good-looking cholesterol and bad-looking cholesterol. So I started this section asking, what does good cholesterol look like? And I had a picture that looked like that. Well, good cholesterol is cholesterol that's not oxidized. Where do I get it? From your own liver. Your liver makes as much cholesterol as you need. You don't have to eat cholesterol to have enough cholesterol. Eating cholesterol just means you're getting oxidized cholesterol. Your body's response to oxidized cholesterol, at least in the liver, is to make more good cholesterol to dilute the bad cholesterol or the oxidized cholesterol. Therefore, your cholesterol goes up if you eat oxidized cholesterol. Now, what is cholesterol doing in the body? Well, your liver is the central processing plant for cholesterol. So here I have a picture of the liver, and below it is the gallbladder and pancreas and part of the intestine. The liver is the central processing plant for all cholesterol, whether it came in through dietary sources or it made it itself. Once the liver gets the cholesterol, it packages it into those purple balls. But we call those purple balls different names. You need a delivery system, a delivery truck, if you please. Well, you can't have a UPS truck going down your bloodstream, but you can have an LDL truck. And so LDL is a delivery truck. It's really what's carrying the cholesterol from your liver to all parts of your body. For all those things we listed earlier, brain development, hormones, fat digestion, and so forth. Once the cholesterol's been out in the body for a while and done its work or gotten incorporated into cell walls or whatever, and it's become worn out or spent or old, then it needs to return to the liver for processing. You need to have some cleanup crews or some sanitation engineers or some garbage trucks to bring it back. And they're called HDL. Have you heard of HDL? And we talk about HDL as being good. Well, it's good to have plenty of garbage trucks if you have lots of delivery trucks. Reminds me, in New York City, they had a strike of the garbage collectors, the sanitation engineers. And during that strike, garbage started piling up around bins and, dumpsters, and people were frustrated, and the news was coming out with their cameras and showing all the trash and saying, well, if you'd pay the garbage collectors more money, they'll come pick up your trash. One family figured out what to do. They took a big box, they put all their trash in it, and then they wrapped the box in pretty wrapping paper. And when Dad went to work, they put this pretty box in the back seat. Dad left the windows down and the car unlocked. Every day, somebody came along and stole their box. All to illustrate, you need a lot of trash trucks running if you have a lot of delivery trucks. Your total cholesterol in most hospitals is a mathematical equation adding the HDL to the LDL and 1/3 of what? Triglycerides. So a high triglycerides is just as predictive of a heart attack as is a high cholesterol. So beware of that as well. All right. So if you have too little cholesterol, all those things we mentioned earlier don't work as well. Brain development, physical and mental energy, cell wall resilience, blood making, digestion of fats, immune system, hormones, and fertility. But what about if I have too much? Well, when I have too much cholesterol, things don't work too well because of a number of reasons. First of all, heart disease. That's the one that is highlighted here. And again, my numbers there are in international numbers because the last time I was giving this was in another country. But this would be 140, 150, and so forth, all the way up to 250. And so as your cholesterol goes over 150, the risk of a fatal heart attack starts going up exponentially, precipitously. And so we feel we're justified in getting your cholesterol down, or at least warning you if it's high. Well, and how high is too high? Well, you don't want it to get too high at all. So if it's above 150, 250, which would be 6.5 international, if it's above 250, then your risk of dying goes up by 250%. That's not a good thing. But it's not just your heart. It's not just your heart that's affected. Can everybody see my slide here? Macular degeneration. High cholesterol brings on macular degeneration. It raises your blood pressure. Why does it raise your blood pressure? As your cholesterol goes up, your blood gets thicker. As your blood gets thicker, it's harder to pump. If it's harder to pump, then it's going to make it so that it need more pressure to pump it around your body. And so your blood pressure goes up. Now, your blood is there to do what? Your blood's there to carry oxygen to the body, to all the cells. But when you have a high cholesterol, you can't get the oxygen to all the cells. That'll make your blood pressure go up too, but it also makes your brain doesn't work as well. Remember our talk this morning and the increasing fat diet and the decreasing oxygen in the bloodstream and people's brains not working well? Well, that's what's doing it, is the cholesterol going up. And as the cholesterol goes up, mental performance goes down. And the risk of Alzheimer's goes up. But what if I told you I had a pill that would lower your cholesterol, which they do, but it would also compromise your mental performance? Would you know a difference? You wouldn't know a difference. Because you wouldn't know if your brain wasn't functioning because of the high cholesterol or the cholesterol pill. And that is the case. Statin drugs make it so your brain doesn't work as well and your risk of Alzheimer's goes up with them. Pills are not the answer. They only change the disease to something else. Which would you rather have, high cholesterol or Alzheimer's? I can't remember. No. Okay. So why high cholesterol? I've mentioned a few things so far, but let's get into the biggest one. Usually I put a picture on the slide that illustrates what we're talking about. What's she doing? Washing dishes? What's that got? Okay. Let's suppose you have a plate. Somebody's been eating, and they didn't eat everything on their plate, including they didn't eat a pad of butter, square slice of a stick of butter. It's sitting on the plate. if I tried to remove that butter with soap and warm water, and just use soap and warm water, in other words, I didn't take a knife and flip it off into the trash, I just tried to see how much soap and warm water it would take to dissolve that butter and clean that plate, how much would it take? Take quite a lot, wouldn't it? It takes a lot of soap and warm water to get that butter off the plate. It's just, yeah. Well, here's the thing. In your body, cholesterol is the soap and water. Cholesterol is there as the soap to help emulsify the fats you eat. So, what happens if I take a jar and I fill it half full of water and then I add a cup of oil? Where's the oil go? Floats to the top. When it floats to the top, well, if that was my blood, which is all water, the fat would all float up where? To my brain. That's not good. And so the cholesterol is there as cholesterol esters to emulsify the fat so it mixes or misses with my watery blood. Otherwise, I'm going to have fat all in my head. And then I really will be in trouble with no oxygen on my brain. So anything that's high in fat, saturated fats like the butter, will need the most soap to emulsify. Trans fat like margarine, same thing. Refined fat of any kind, bottled oils like corn oil and soybean oil and olive oil and coconut oil and all these kind of things are going to take some soap. Any high-fat diet, anything that's high in fat in the diet is going to take more soap. Here's the way it works. We call it enterohepatic circulation. Entero meaning your intestines, hepatic meaning your liver, circulation meaning it goes in a circle. And here's the way it works. When you eat something high in fat, it comes down your esophagus. When it hits your stomach tests the food to see how much fat is in it. When it tests the food to see how much fat is in it, if there's a lot of fat, it tells the liver, make a lot of soap and put it into the mix because there's a lot of fat in this one. And so the fat tube puts a bunch of soap in with the food here in the small intestine. That's coming out of the liver. What's that fat tube? It's the bile duct, and it's hooked to the gallbladder. The gallbladder is like, in the bathroom, you can push this thing and the soap comes out. That's what your gallbladder is. It's a soap dispensing or holding bladder. All right, and so the cholesterol soap is mixed with the fats. Somewhere along the small intestine, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream as cholesterol, soaps, and fat. The more fats you eat, the more cholesterol soap it takes, the more of it's going to be in your bloodstream. Does that make sense? Yeah, so the more fat you eat, the more cholesterol, high cholesterol you have. Doesn't matter what kind of fat it is. It's worse with solid fats, but it happens with any of the fats. And, all right. For each 5% that you include in your diet, your total cholesterol goes up, well, that's an international number, so about 5 points. And so it's pretty predictable. A diet high in saturated fat, animal fats, coconut oil, whatever, can raise your LDL cholesterol by 60%. That's huge. That's because it takes so much soap to emulsify them. Same thing, butter, 40 grams, raises your cholesterol by about 20 points. Now, some programs, in order to lower your cholesterol, will tell you switch from coconut oil and lard to olive oil and canola oil. Monounsaturated oils tend to lower cholesterol in that regard, and polyunsaturated fats tend to lower cholesterol. A switch from harder fats to softer fats will lower your cholesterol if solid fats were the reason you had high cholesterol. But if you weren't used to eating any oils and had a cholesterol that was high, and you added these oils, it wouldn't help. It might even make it go up, because it's still going to take soap to emulsify these fats. Now let's look at this in terms of what type of fats you're eating. And here we have our man again with his intestines. And if he eats something that's high in refined fats, okay, what's the example of refined fats? Well, bottled oils, like corn oil. Yeah, corn oil. Okay, the oil has already been extracted from all the roughage. The corn, how many ears of corn does it take to make 1 teaspoon of oil? Something like 13. So you bypass 13 ears of corn to get this little bit of oil. Now it's all refined. You take it into your body, and it gets absorbed very early on in the small intestine, way up here at the top, because it's already refined. It's already taken away from the fiber, taken away from the phytochemicals, taken away from the enzymes. It's already absorbed, so it absorbs much earlier on with a lot more cholesterol. On the other hand, if I ate that corn, or I ate olives, or I ate nuts, then it takes a lot longer for the fat to be removed from the food, and it gets absorbed with less cholesterol and a lot more what we call phospholipids. It's a different fat in the body that doesn't cause problems. It's actually what cell walls are made out of. And so unrefined fats, naturally occurring like in flaxseed or in walnuts or whatever, will not raise your cholesterol like does bottled oils. Let's look at this on a chart of different sources of fat. Cheese is going to be largely saturated fat. You eat cheese, you can expect a high cholesterol. Here I put 251. If the total cholesterol is 251 with cheese, and I replace the cheese calorie for calorie for vegetable oil, it will come down by 23 points. If I replace the cheese not with vegetable oil, which is still refined oil, but with nuts, it'll come down by 41 points. Because the nuts are naturally occurring, they have the fiber there with them, they have the enzymes. The oil isn't just free to come flowing into your bloodstream through the small intestine. Oh, did you know God says something about fats? Speak unto the children of Israel. God had to talk to the ex-slaves and teach them a few things. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, ye shall eat no manner of fat. We could probably pause there. I mean, back then it was fat of ox or of sheep or of goat. Today it might be Crisco, margarine, coconut oil, bottled oils, whatever. This thing of eating lots of fats. Currently I'm working on a talk on just vegetable oils. It's amazing all the stuff that this has done to our health since the industrial age made vegetable oil so available to everybody. I mean, there's so much of it we can burn it as biodiesel these days, right? It's just everywhere. And what, it hasn't always been in the history of mankind that you could go down to the supermarket and get bottles and bottles of every flavor and style of oil you want. Canola oil and corn oil and avocado oil and sesame oil and there's all these different types of oils. Well, it hasn't done us a lot of good. I know in the Old Testament they used some olive oil, but in the wilderness, when they're eating their manna, I don't think they had just, bottles and bottles of oil for all 1 million or 2 million or however many people there were out there all the time. It was more of a... If you saw what they called olive oil, you wouldn't hardly recognize it. It'd almost be sticky instead of oily. It's a very strong flavor and still got a lot of nutrients in it. But now, compared to vegetarians, users of animal products. By animal products, we mean meat, eggs, dairy, and so forth. They eat a lot more fat, 50% more fat. What's that tell you? Well, the more fat you eat, the more cholesterol it takes. So yeah, the cholesterol goes up. They have 30% higher total cholesterols and 42% higher LDL cholesterol. It's predictable. It's, you could figure it out just by thinking about it, right? Now let's talk about other things that are beneficial in the plant kingdom. plant sterols. Plant sterols. So what's a plant sterol? So we've been talking about cholesterol. Plant sterols will be called phyto for plant sterols. They're different than cholesterol. You see, in the human body, the temperature is maintained, very consistent. The pH is maintained, very consistent. The oxygen level is maintained, very consistent. And so the environment's always very steady. So cholesterol is not very resistant to changes. And so that's why it gets oxidized so easily. But in the plants, the phytosterols have to deal with temperature changes. Right now it's cold out there. Other days it might be, summer it'll be up 100 degrees. It has to be able to deal with all kinds of weather conditions, sun, wind, rain, whatever. And so the plant sterols are very stable. They don't oxidize easily. They don't tend to cause problems. And so they're beneficial. And your body likes to absorb them in preference to cholesterol. Okay, a diet high in plant sterols, soy protein, fiber, and almonds can lower cholesterol by 28%. Well, how's that compared to what a statin drug will do? Well, about the same. So I put here, compared to lifestyle interventions, statin drug therapy offers no cholesterol lowering advantage except for one. If you take the cholesterol lowering pill, you might be able to keep going through the golden arches. But as one person observed, if you're going through the golden arches, you might be getting close to the pearly gates. And as we said earlier, the statin drug can cause you Alzheimer's too, so after a while you won't care. Now, those plant sterols are good, plant fibers are good. So when you eat that high-fat meal and it's coming down your esophagus, your stomach tests it and says, oh, this one's fat, and tells the liver to put more fat soap into the small intestine. If at that point you have lots of fiber coming through, the fiber will absorb like a sponge some of the cholesterol soap and a lot of the fat and carry it on out your large intestine and right out of your body. And it's fairly predictable. Let's see now. For example, if I have 1 gram of, say, psyllium, I can expect my cholesterol to go down by 1 point for every gram of psyllium I take. If I take 1 gram of oat bran, I can expect my cholesterol to go down by 1.5 points for every gram of oat bran I can include in my diet. If I use fruit pectin, for every gram of fruit pectin, my cholesterol will go down by 2.3 points. So if my cholesterol was 200 and I wanted to get it down to 150, I just take 50 grams of psyllium per day, or about 35 grams of oat bran per day, or about 20 grams of fruit pectin per day, and I could see those numbers improve. That sort of suggests I eat what I'm going to eat, and then I send a fiber chaser after it. Well, that's all right, but how about if I just eat food that hasn't had all its fiber removed? How about if I eat high fiber food all the time, like carrots? Carrots are high in fiber, they're high in antioxidants, they lower cholesterol, and they help clean up oxidized cholesterol. So there you go, the ideal cholesterol lowering food. And if you eat a bunch of carrots, you probably won't be eating a bunch of bear claws or whatever. Yeah. All right, other foods that are good because they're high in fiber are beans. A couple servings a day can lower your triglycerides and cholesterol by 10%. Just touching on the phytosterols again, your body will preferentially absorb phytosterols to cholesterol, and that way the phytosterols will send the cholesterol out the large intestine and out of the body. Where do I find these type of things, these phytosterols? Well, things that have been studied are different nuts. The nuts studied that do have these and are helpful are Brazil nuts, pecans, pine nuts, pistachios, macadamia nuts, walnuts, almonds, hazelnuts, seeds like sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds, beans such as soybeans and peas, amaranth, other grains, fruits such as navel oranges, tangerines, and mangoes have been studied. Mangoes are pretty high in fiber. And vegetables such as cauliflower, broccoli, and romaine lettuce. And they all lower cholesterol by the mechanism of phytosterols. So, the combined effects of plant sterol, vegetable protein, as opposed to animal protein, and fiber can reduce LDL by as much as 29%. So go to the fresh fruit and vegetable department and find some good food, and maximal or near maximal reductions can be achieved in 2 weeks. In other words, you won't see a total change for 2 weeks. But after 2 weeks, what happens? Your body says, look, he's changed. I don't need to keep large reserves of soap on hand in case he eats one of those, fat meals. But guess what? You can't cheat on the diet. Because you take and eat a high-fat diet, and your cholesterol will go up for 2 weeks. And then you have to start all over again. I had a friend who was, he was a doctor at Weimar. And they have a lot of heart patients. And they treat them with natural diets like this to bring their cholesterol down. But he had a patient that the cholesterol wouldn't just come down. And he was an outpatient. He would come in and visit him every week, and things weren't improving. And finally he said, okay, let's do a complete dietary history. Let's do an exhaustive study of what you're eating. Okay, Monday, what'd you have for breakfast? What'd you have for your lunch? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. He went through the whole list. He got to Sunday, and the man said, well, Sunday lunch, I've been doing so good all week that I decided to reward myself. And I go out to the Golden Corral, and I have the big one. So every week he is resetting his cholesterol at a high level because the body knew, okay, we better be prepared with enough soap to handle that one. Okay, let's get off diet and talk about other things that affect cholesterol. Did you know that how you schedule your meals makes a difference? A regular schedule, i.e. breakfast always at the same time, lunch always at the same time, etc., helps lower cholesterol, triglycerides, helps reduce abdominal obesity, and it raises your HDL. It's good. We call it chrononutrition. There's been a lot of research in the last 5 years on chrononutrition or chronobiology, or what they call circadian rhythms. When you follow a clock, health improves. Very interesting. And in that following a schedule, it's good to have a good big breakfast. People eating a larger breakfast have lower cholesterol. People who skip breakfast don't eat less food for the day. They just shift later in the day when they eat it. And the later in the day that you eat something, the longer it takes to digest. And the longer it takes to digest, the more cholesterol seems to get absorbed into your system. The higher your cholesterol goes. The same meal eaten for breakfast, same menu, eaten for supper will cause a higher cholesterol. And so cholesterol rise is more profound after an evening meal. Anything that slows digestion, anything that makes it take longer to get your food through the system will raise your cholesterol. Snacking between meals elevates total cholesterol and reduces HDL by that same mechanism. Because when you snack, it makes it so it takes much longer to digest your food. When it takes much longer to digest your food, your cholesterol's going to go higher. Now, one good thing that will lower your cholesterol is caloric restriction. What's caloric restriction? It's eating food with less calories. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to eat less volume of food. You just have to choose food that has less calories. For example, a head of lettuce. How many heads of lettuce could you eat? Maybe one. How many calories? 40. A Snickers bar. How many Snickers bars could you eat? I don't answer that. But I had one gentleman when I was lecturing, and he says, I could eat 12. I said, really? He says, that's how many is in a box, and I've done that before. How many calories in each Snickers bar? 240. How many calories did he eat? Thousands, you know. So caloric restriction means eating, well, like the ladies there eating a salad. And caloric restriction by 25%, eating 25% fewer calories. And exercise can lower LDL by about 30 points and lower triglycerides by about 50 points. And yeah, all right. Okay, you saw this picture this morning where we looked at the fact that when people have blockages in their coronary arteries, then they can only detect it on an EKG when it reaches 70%. Same is true of your brain, but the sensitivity is much more. In fact, if your brain gets plugged just 20% with plaque, then you begin to see changes on a mini mental status exam. And as we said this morning, cholecystine of the Cleveland Clinic has shown on angiography that you can clean these blockages out with a diet low in fat and high in fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts, and grains and beans. All right. Good hydration. You can lower your cholesterol by sheer hydration. It's a dilution phenomenon. If you're dehydrated, everything goes up, relatively speaking. If you have half as much water in your system as what you should, everything's going to about double in, height or in on your labs. So, drinking plenty. How much water do I need to drink? It's good to drink at least 8 glasses a day, right? 8 glasses, and people trying to get their cholesterol down probably could do well to drink 12. You don't drink too much water until you've drunken more than a gallon, which would be more like 16. And the only thing you need to do is start drinking more than a gallon a day is add a little salt. You don't run out of sodium. So drinking plenty of water can be helpful. Gardeners, what do you get out in the garden? Sun and fresh air. What does sun do for you? Remember we said that the oxidized cholesterol causes skin cancer because it goes to your skin? Have you heard it said that if you have a chicken and you want to lower the cholesterol, you skin it? Well, at least that's what they tell people, because there's a lot of cholesterol in the skin. Or you have a lot of cholesterol in your skin. What the sun does is it hits the cholesterol in your skin, and it changes it to pre-vitamin D, which gets changed to full vitamin D later in the body. And so gardeners who get more sun end up having lower cholesterol levels and higher vitamin D levels. It's a good trade-off. I mean, any outdoor exercise would have that benefit, but this is one that's good. People who get exercise, it's beneficial to lower total cholesterol and triglycerides and raise your HDL. People can get out and lift weights or jog or walk. Cardiovascular exercises, 30 minutes 3 times a week, can decrease triglycerides and increase HDL. Here's a good one. Remember, how many have read Laughter the Best Medicine? Yeah, Reader's Digest. Well, laughing boosts HDL as much as 23%. So there you go. Find something to laugh about. Or going to church is good. Religious observance has been shown to have a lowering effect on total cholesterol, triglycerides, and LDL while elevating your HDL. They call them weekly attendees at religious services usually in the research. Helping others, you're helped. I mentioned this morning. And when you help others, you yourself are helped, and it benefits you in many ways. People live longer who volunteer for a thing. Mortality was significantly reduced for individuals who provided support for friends, relatives, neighbors, and their spouse. Receiving support had no effect. And I showed you this morning, so I'm going to go on. Now let's talk about the mind-body connection. Let's deal with the mind-body connection. Mind-body connection is huge. How many have heard of Dr. Mark Sandoval? Yeah, he's not too far from us, and his whole focus has gone more toward the mind effect on the body because he saw so much of it and figured we didn't have good resources for it. So his whole ministry is about that, called the Law of Life. And anyway, let's talk about mind-body connection. Major depression. Dr. Neil Nedley, have you heard of his program on how to get over depression? His program gives them a diet that helps depression, but it also helps lower cholesterol. So a diet that helps lower cholesterol helps get rid of depression. Oh, which came first, the chicken or the egg? The diet, the depression, right? So very interesting connections here. Now, let's just focus a bit for healthy cholesterol. When your cholesterol is clean and pure, when it's not oxidized, you have less depression, less bipolar. When you have lower cholesterol, you have less Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, better memory, and clear thinking. Now, psychological stress, on the other hand, raises cholesterol. I was at camp meeting one year. One of the ladies, I was helping them set up camp, and then I spoke at camp, and I helped them take it down. One of the pastor's wives came to me and says, I need your help. I've got high cholesterol. I don't know what to do about it. And what can I do to, improve this? And I said, oh, well, let's sit down over lunch and we'll talk about it. So we did. And I said, so just for my background, I've been lecturing here. Did you come to any of my lectures? And she looked embarrassed like, this is a bad question. And no, I didn't. But she says, Pastor so-and-so was doing a series on stress and childhood problems and so forth. And I knew I needed to go to that one, so I went to that one. I said, oh, yeah, I saw his titles. I thought they'd be interesting, too. I just wanted to ask you if you'd come to my lecture so I knew what kind of background and where to start with you. I said, how did his lectures go? She says, it went great until he told us to take out a piece of paper and a pen, and then he told us to start writing some notes about our most troubled relationship. She said, I remembered my ex-husband, and all I could do is cry. Stress raises cortisol. It's your stress hormone. Cortisol raises your blood sugar. Blood sugar makes your insulin go up, and insulin makes your cholesterol go up. So it's a whole chain reaction. And so her cholesterol stayed up until practicing some of those things she learned from the other pastor about stress management eventually got her to forgive her ex, and her cholesterol came down. Very interesting. Okay, let's get back to diet for a minute. The Hawaiian diet. The diet from Hawaii, based on their traditional foods. Lots of fruits and vegetables and little fish. High in complex carbohydrates, low in fat, moderate in protein, has been shown to lower cholesterol by as much as 40 points. Wow, 40 points. Okay, here's the prescription. Fly to Hawaii. Sit on a beach and try some of their food. Doesn't that sound like a great vacation? Stress relieving too, hey? Well, what have we been talking about here anyway? What's this all about? Isn't this the Bible diet? The Eden diet? The original diet? God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it, they will be yours for food, and you'll eat the plants of the field. And at Pizza Hut. No, it doesn't say that. No. So, wow, all right. The original diet helps lower cholesterol. And so we look forward to a time when we get to eat all kinds of good things, and he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river, there was a tree of life, which bare 12 manners of fruit, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. Revelation 22, 1 and 2. That sounds like a good time, doesn't it? Yeah. Well, let's get back to our gentleman here who had a cholesterol of 140. And he's baiting me, saying, why me? Why did I have a heart attack? Why were they offering me a bypass surgery at that low cholesterol? And so I followed him around. And guess what he was eating? You got it, pizza and ice cream. His favorite thing was to have a pizza party and eat ice cream. And so, although his cholesterol was low, if we opened the hood and took up the dipstick and looked at the oil, it would be black. Time for a change. And so, I don't think he ever changed, because he did end up dying of some heart thing. But, in summary, you need some good healthy cholesterol. By healthy, I mean non-oxidized. Too much hurts your heart, your brain, your eyes. Oxidized cholesterol creates disease all through your body. I didn't even touch on autoimmune diseases that it raises. Stress raises and oxidizes your cholesterol both. A good lifestyle with dietary and psychological habits makes good cholesterol. So go low fat, avoid fat. Avoid the soap producers, cooking oils, animal fat, margarines, butter. Eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, whole grains and beans in preference to refined foods, oxidized foods, and animal protein. Keep a regular schedule, including a good breakfast, even skipping supper. Become more physically active. Drink more pure water. And turn your stress over to somebody who can handle it. Turn it over to God. All right, any questions? Yes?
What if you don't have a gallbladder anymore? They surgically removed that before you knew any of this good stuff.
They took your parts and pieces.
Yes.
Well, it's still, the only thing different about the gallbladder being gone is that you don't have much control over when the soap is being put into your small intestine. But all the advice here about dealing with a high blood cholesterol is the same. And so you still follow the same plan to lower your cholesterol. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. I was always told that we needed like some extra digestive enzymes or something like that, but I guess it'd only be if you were eating meat that you would need that stuff.
Or lots of fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right, because you have no control over when the cholesterol or the cholesterol soap is going into your small intestine. It tends to dribble down your small intestine all the time, causes irritation, causes dumping syndrome, increases the risk of other diseases. But it went to solve a problem they figured they were fixing, but there's other ways of solving that. But all right, other questions? So she says, what about avocados? Avocados would be like eating nuts instead of eating cheese. They won't raise your cholesterol because with the avocados are the highest fiber fruit you can get. And you think, well, the fiber should be tough like mango fiber or pineapple fiber. But fiber doesn't have to be tough. Like oat bran is, when you cook it, it's not tough at all. It's sort of jelly-like. Fiber isn't necessarily toothpicks or sharp things. And so avocados have everything they need with them to help you with the fat. And there isn't, relatively speaking, there's not near as much fat in avocados as there would be like in a macadamia nut. Other questions?
So you said eat a big breakfast, skip supper. So are you saying 3 meals a day, or what? Some people have learned to maybe eat 6 mini meals a day. What do you recommend?
Right. So there's a lot these days about intermittent fasting. It's sort of the first step toward people in the world figuring out that keeping your meals on time and when you eat them. There's a lot of studies showing what happens when you eat late in the evening. People who eat in the evening, their cancer grows 60% faster. Cholesterol goes up, as we showed here. Evening meals mess up your chronobiology in that they make it so you don't sleep well. And so switching to a meal plan that doesn't eat too close to bedtime is a good one. The best plan is a 2 meal a day plan. Children of Israel were on 2 meals a day up until Solomon's time. Then all his strange wives and all those Lebanese workers talked him into a big meal in the evening. And it didn't help their health. People who eat 2 meals a day have a lot better health in many respects. And so we recommend that, at least from the research, what the universities are coming out with and publishing on.
What about for children?
Children might be a different story. You know, like when a baby's born and you're breastfeeding, it might be every 2 hours. Over time, though, you work to get them on a schedule. That takes time. You know, our son took a while. When can you put them on 2 meals a day? That's a good question. I'm not sure I have a good answer on that per se. Although children of Israel being on 2 meals a day up until the time of Solomon, that would have meant everybody. That's a good question to probably look more into. When would you start switching them over to a 2 meal a day plan? If I was guessing, if I was working, I'd say I would guess just 6 years old, but that's just kind of my gestalt, not my research. Yeah. Other questions?
Can you explain what is non-HDL cholesterol?
Yes, non-HDL, because HDL is the one, the cleanup cholesterol, the cholesterol that's there to pick up the old cholesterol and take it back to the liver, and it's considered good. All the others are considered questionable or bad, and so in order to differentiate, they say HDL and the rest, non-HDL. So it means LDL, VLDL, total, all the other triglycerides, all the other cholesterols.
So on my wife's blood test, there was HDL, LDL, VLDL, and then non-HDL.
And the reason they do that is to kind of give a ratio between HDL and the non-HDL ones. And then the ratio makes a big difference as to, and why the ratio? Because for all the delivery trucks, you need a certain number of trash trucks. If you're low in trash trucks, like the trash truck's not picking up trash in New York City, trash is going to pile up. So a lot of people will have lifestyle habits that will lower their HDL, raise their LDL. So you have an overabundance of delivered cholesterol to the tissues, but not an overabundance of HDL to pick it up. So that's why we compare the non-HDL to the HDL and say you need more HDL because you have an awful lot of, the non-HDL. Does that make sense?
So it's basically just adding all together. All the non-HDL is just a sum of those.
And it's because over the last few years they've divided up the non-HDL into more and more categories. Very high density, very low density lipoprotein and low density lipoprotein. And there's another category in between. You just keep dividing it up because they figured, okay, and how big the molecules are or how small. And so there's getting to be more lab tests. And so they did differentiate it by those and HDL.
So is the calculated LDL, is that an accurate measurement?
Well, it can be because it's like by exclusion. You figure if you have 5 things and only one unknown, and you know what the total is, well, if these add up to 80% of the 5, then the last 20%'s got to be that other one. So it could have some room for some error, but let me tell you, these lab tests aren't just perfect. I had one patient who, for whatever reason, decided to go to 3 different hospitals in town, big university town, big hospitals, got labs at 3 different hospitals throughout the day. And if I didn't know it was the same patient, I'd think it's a totally different patient. There was that much difference in those labs. I'm thinking, okay, can we trust these labs? Which one's right? So it's a bit, if you don't like your lab test, go get it taken again. And here in Springfield, you know, you can order your own lab tests because they have any test now down by Walmart in the south side of town, and you can just walk in and order a lab test yourself. They're happy to take your money and test your blood. Let's see, I saw a hand up here somewhere. Oh yeah, what time of a day, how well hydrated you are or not. There's a lot of factors. Whether you slept that night. There's a lot of factors that play. Whether you live in a moldy house. I mean, there's all kinds of things that just aren't considered in the average lab test, and or even research.
I'm married to a hunter.
Or yeah, okay, hand up here. He's coming with the mic. Just a minute. There you go.
I've noticed that in our facility, they hand out cold water in the morning. It has ice in it, and it really tastes good. But you let it set for an hour, and it doesn't taste good at all. So I'm having trouble with getting good water, and I don't know, being in a facility, if I even have a choice.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what we would do in that situation is we'd buy one of these filters. I mean, if you want a really good one, you get a Berkey. Or if you want, you can go to most supermarkets or Walmart will have a Brita filters. You pour water in the top, it comes down through and comes to the bottom. You can pour it out. That would be a good thing. Then you can either take that bottled water and put it in there, or you can, you know, if your tap water is reasonable, it'll clean it up too. You're welcome. All right. Well, I don't see. Oh yeah, hand. Yes.
Back to the HDL. Is it just exercise that will increase your HDL? Because it's important to have a higher, elevated levels of HDL, correct?
Right.
So anything besides exercise?
Well, the laughing, you know, the laughing there and the spirituality were both raising HDL. And it gets to be an interesting question because oops, I guess he's busy. It gets to be an interesting question, and we're getting kind of into the finer things here. But I've had some people who are on a good vegetarian, a good vegan diet, you know, good plant-based diet, and they were told by the hospital your white count's too low. And they said, "What do I do to raise my white count?" They said, "Well, eat chicken." Well, if you're not eating anything that poses a threat to your body, why would your white count go up? And why would I want my white count to go up because I ate something that posed a threat to my body? I mean, and so I don't know if any of you know Eugenie Pines, and the original doctor started was Agatha Thrash, and she was a pathologist, and she sort of documented this. You know, people on good diets have lower white counts just because they aren't doing things that pose a threat and cause the white count to go up. So by the same token, if you have all your cholesterol isn't oxidized or oxidizing easily, why would you need a higher HDL? And so there's some nuances here that in some cases when the HDL is higher than it should be, it indicates having to clean up a lot of oxidized cholesterol. So there's a lot of stuff research-wise that's still, the jury's out to a certain degree. But when you're living a good lifestyle like Adam lived in Eden and you eat lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, I say, don't worry about it. And just see where the Lord takes you. Otherwise, it's kind of like always going back to Number Israel. Well, let's see. I have people that want to send me their labs every, few months. And, okay, what happened this time? And it's a little like somebody trying to lose weight, and every hour they go and step on the scale. What do I look like now? I don't know if that answers your question or not, but more things to, okay, other questions. Well, wait a minute, he'll get you the mic here.
You were talking about the cholesterol needed for the mind.
Yes.
So what helps to have a clearer mind? As
Oh.
we get older, we have trouble remembering some, recall. Can you give us some pointers on that?
I'll tell you
That's
what.
important to me.
Oh, yeah. All right, I'm going to switch here to the next slide, which shows my website, Northern Lights Health Education. And if you go there and you come down this side here to presentation handouts or online videos, you can watch a video called Alzheimer's Keeping the Mind Sharp. And it's a whole talk and program on how to reverse memory problems and deal with keeping from going into Alzheimer's. And it's also in our book, which we'll have out tomorrow. All right. Other questions? I saw a hand back here somewhere. No? Maybe not. Okay. Well, very good. You've been a good group. And we better let you go before you turn to pumpkins.
And you'll be here tomorrow.
We'll be here tomorrow, and we'll be talking about cholesterol being lowered by charcoal. Well, that's one of the things charcoal does. Yeah. And my wife will be giving that talk, and then I'll be giving the clinical correlation with what you do with patients, and then we'll entertain questions again.
Okay. Thank you for your time, and we'll see you all tomorrow at 2 o'clock
2 o'clock.
upstairs. Thank you.